Deep in the mountains, there's a secluded temple that serves as a hidden sanctuary for a long-bearded master known as the Old Abbot and his band of young disciples, the little Arhats. The Old Abbot brought them under his wing and gave them a place to call home. He's been both a father and a mother figure to them, rolling up his sleeves to handle everything from their infancy to every little chore in between. These 7 boys grew into spirited young monks. The Old Abbot even gave them nicknames based on their musical connection. Sometimes, while drifting into a light doze, he'd start tapping on bamboo tubes, creating a rhythmic, harmonious melody. The moment those notes hit their ears, the boys would break into martial arts forms corresponding to the beat. Before long, they had mastered the Arhat Fist, a legendary fighting style that had been lost to the ages. It's clear the Old Abbot has a real flair for the performing arts. Even though the Old Abbot always kept a disciplinary switch on hand and ran a tight ship with his disciples, you just can't stop kids from being kids and getting into mischief. But once the Old Abbot caught wind of their disappearing act, he blew his top, slamming his hand onto the table with enough force to leave a permanent mark. As a result, the whole gang was sentenced to a grueling balance drill standing on one leg atop wooden pillars. To make matters worse, the Old Abbot then started whipping up a delicious stir-fry, letting the aroma waft over just to tease his disciples' growling stomachs. Among the group, Rear was the only one who kept his head on straight and acted with any real maturity, so the Old Abbot cut him some slack and let him take over the stir-fry duties. Before heading out, the Old Abbot gave Rear strict orders to keep a close eye on the other 6. Before long, they were all bickering at the top of their lungs until things finally boiled over into a full-on scuffle. Hearing the commotion, the Old Abbot came charging back with his staff to break it up. Suddenly, the boys were more united than ever, hitting the ground running and bolting away from the Old Abbot like their lives depended on it. These 7 kids who were just at each other's throats a moment ago were now working together with uncanny teamwork. The Old Abbot kept falling for their traps one after another, and he was so steamed he felt like he was about to blow a gasket. In the end, he decided to sentence them to the mountains for some grueling training in the Arhat Formation. This tactical maneuver is considered the crown jewel of the Shaolin style, a legendary technique passed down through generations. Every member is perfectly synced, covering each other's backs with 0 openings for an enemy to exploit. Wanting his boys to reach their full potential, the Old Abbot was constantly writing them to keep their noses to the grindstone every single day. Yet, when night fell, he transformed into a total softie, making his rounds to the dorms just to tuck each one in. It's easy to see that despite all the tough love, this crew is as thick as thieves. They're more than just teacher and students. They're real deal family. That night, on the edge of the woods, a family happened to be driving by on their vacation. A little rabbit scurried out and blocked the road, prompting the dad to pull over. Out of nowhere, they were ambushed by a group of strangers. Before they knew it, the thugs made off with their car, leaving the whole family stranded deep in the wilderness. The next morning, the boys received a letter from the Old Abbot letting them know he'd be away on business for a while, with strict orders for all 7 brothers to keep their noses to the grindstone and stay on top of their training. But the moment they heard the master was out of the house, they were over the moon. It was like a dream come true. Right around then, the same car thieves from the night before resurfaced. It turns out these guys were looking for a legendary gemstone buried deep within the ancient tomb. Their plan? To pawn the jewel for enough cash to produce the ultimate cinematic masterpiece, a blockbuster that would take the entire film industry by storm. While crossing a rope bridge suspended between 2 mountains, the muscle of the group, Brute, accidentally stepped right through a wooden plank because he was carrying such a heavy load. This caused Dragon to lose his footing and go tumbling off the edge. Luckily, he managed to snag Brute's hand just in time. That's when the Old Abbot appeared, looking like a superhero as he pulled Dragon back up to safety. While catching his breath, Dragon tried to get some intel and learned that the temple was packed with elite martial arts masters. It sounded like if anyone dared to cross them, their survival would be a total coin toss. Hearing this, Dragon started to feel like this heist might be a bit more than he could chew. But with his eyes still fixed on the prize, he decided to stick to the original plan and keep pushing forward. Fortunately, besides Brute, who's a bit of a glutton and not the sharpest tool in the shed, and a prissy, high-maintenance girl named Silky, Gadget actually proved to be a huge asset to Dragon on this mission with his one-of-a-kind inventions. He was confident he was about to hit a home run and pull off a total masterpiece. But after fumbling around for a bit, Gadget realized he'd made a rookie mistake. He completely forgot the power plug. In the blink of an eye, he went from the team's MVP to a total liability in everyone's eyes. Desperate to save face, Gadget decided to break out his secret weapon. He deployed a spy mosquito, fully charged and ready to buzz over to the temple to scout out the situation. From their monitor, they could clearly see the shadows of the masters practicing their martial arts. They sent the mosquito in for a closer look, but out of nowhere, a phone call came through and scrambled the signal. By the time Dragon finished the call and looked back at the screen, the spy mosquito had already been swatted into a pancake. Gadget got chewed out again and was stuck taking over for the mosquito, tasked with infiltrating the temple himself. At that moment, the little Arhats were finished hanging out inside and headed to the courtyard for a round of target practice. Just as Gadget made his stealthy entrance into the temple, the boys kicked off their game. He was trying to look like a total pro, scouting the perimeter, but out of nowhere, a bright light flashed in his eyes, sending him tumbling and leaving him momentarily blinded. As he fumbled to get back on his feet, boom, he fell straight into a hidden pit trap. He tried to scramble his way out. Ray's squad rushed toward Gadget's position, but he was quick enough to disguise himself as a wall, successfully blending in. Thinking he'd hit a home run with that move, he decided to double down and try the same trick again. He was just standing there, grinning ear to ear because he hadn't been spotted, when suddenly thump, thump, Gadget was left gasping for air, lying there in total despair, feeling like the whole world was against him. To top it all off, someone else came along and stepped right on his head. Poor Gadget ended up running around the temple in total frustration, screaming at the top of his lungs about how these masters were way out of his league. Back on the other side, his crew picked up the signal, and it scared the living daylights out of them, making them realize they couldn't stick around a second longer. Gadget tried to find an escape route, leaving him with no choice but to camouflage himself as a decorative tree right in the middle of the kitchen. To make matters worse, Gadget had picked a spot right next to a roaring stove, and before he knew it, the flames started singeing his pants. He was inches away from becoming a human bonfire. After his narrow escape from the hot seat, Gadget was hauled off to get patched up. Later, as the boys settled in for the night, the two eldest brothers took turns keeping watch and catching up on their reading, while poor Gadget got some traditional cupping therapy and a massage to get his energy flowing again. The rest of the crew waited all night, and when Gadget didn't show up, they were fuming. They decided it was time to march up to the temple and demand justice for their comrade. However, Dragon and Silky started playing mind games, egging Brute on until his hero complex kicked in and he volunteered to take the lead. In a moment of pure recklessness, he geared up with a mountain of clumsy pyrotechnics and headed for the temple. The little Arhats, worried that Gadget wasn't in any shape to be moved, refused to hand him over. During the standoff, one of the kids accidentally lit a fuse. Panicking, Brute scrambled to find some water to douse the spark. He might be a meathead, but in that moment, he actually used his brain sort of. Following the kid's helpful directions, he took a flying leap into the nearest well. But as luck would have it, the well was bone dry. The little Arhats, thinking he was trying to pull a stunt or end it all, rushed in to stop him. They tied Brute up and hauled him away from a nearby water trough. Terrified the fuse would finally blow, Brute chucked the explosive as far as he could. It flew a good distance, but landed right in a nearby tree. The kids hit the ground running and bolted inside, leaving Brute standing there feeling like a total boss until he realized he'd just disturbed a massive beehive. Suddenly, he was in a dead sprint with a swarm of angry bees hot on his heels. Seriously, this guy is a special kind of stupid. Watching the disaster unfold from a distance, his teammates just shook their heads in disbelief, mourning yet another valiant sacrifice for the team. Realizing they had to go into the lion's den to get their guys back, Dragon and Silky disguised themselves as tourists and asked the temple for a place to stay the night. After some smooth talking, the kids softened up and let them in. That evening, the boys even laid out a massive vegetarian feast for their guests. Paranoid that the food might be spiked, the duo refused to take a single bite until they saw the kids eat first. But in the blink of an eye, the table was picked clean. There wasn't a scrap left. One piece of pastry remained, but before they could snag it, two of the little Arhats split it between themselves. That night, with their stomachs growling, the two of them snuck around the grounds looking for their teammates. They found Gadget looking like a total wreck, wrapped in bandages like an Egyptian mummy, and it broke their hearts to see him in such bad shape. Dragon secured the door and headed to the courtyard, where Brute suddenly popped up from a water jar like a jack-in-the-box. Startled, Dragon nearly let out a yell but quickly muffled Brute and told him to get back under cover before they were spotted. On the other side of the temple, Silky was trying to distract the kids with a performance, but she was so dull that the plan was going south fast. Dragon decided it was time to take over, waving her off to take the stage himself. He threw on a wig and went full undercover lady, which had the little Arhats absolutely howling with laughter. He even threw in a Michael Jackson-style dance routine that had everyone mesmerized. While everyone was distracted by the show, Dew stayed sharp and caught Silky trying to plant some hidden traps along the path. He immediately gathered the little Arhats to brainstorm a way to prank the guests right back. By sunrise, Dragon and Silky had ditched the disguises and were standing in the courtyard, armed to the teeth and ready for a showdown. But when the little Arhats woke up, they acted like the duo didn't even exist, casually going about their morning chores. Being treated like ghosts left the two standing there in the scorching sun until they were practically melting. Unable to take it anymore, Dragon finally made his move, cornering Saul to lure the other brothers out into the open. But just as he was grinning, thinking he had the upper hand, Saul landed a sharp kick right to his head, sending Dragon tumbling backward. The kids scrambled away, but not before delivering some parting shots with their brooms. On the other side of the yard, Silky was a whirlwind of action, lashing out with her whip like a total warrior princess. Ray wasn't backing down either, hurling a massive water jar lit her way. Silky showed off some serious flexibility, arching back to dodge it, but her luck ran out a second later when a heavy blow sent her flying straight into a water jar. Having learned from his teammates' mistakes, Dragon was on high alert, scanning his surroundings like a hawk. He spotted Fa hurling an air of corn at him and dodged it with a catch me if you can grin. But right as he was laughing at them, a massive fist came out of nowhere and clocked him right in the jaw. Before he could even recover, another heavy blow landed on his head, leaving him looking like a total wreck. Refusing to give up, he started chasing the little Arhats again, trying to regain his dignity with some bizarre, made-up martial arts moves. Fa responded by dropping into a perfect high split that went way over his own head. Dragon was so spooked he practically had a panic attack right then and there. He grabbed a large piece of wood to swing at me, but the kid just pointed upward. Dragon looked up just in time to get a bucket of dust dumped all over him. Fuming, he chased them to the end of the path and tried to smash Saul over the head, but the kid countered with the iron head move that sent the vibration right back into Dragon's skull. To make matters worse, he stumbled right into the nail traps they'd set the night before. Talk about a string of bad luck. Dragon was left frantically nursing his wounds after the disastrous trap, looking absolutely miserable. Then C popped up and threw a handful of beans on the ground, making him lose his footing completely. Lala seized the moment, sliding a wooden board under him, sending Dragon coasting straight into the temple's large cauldron. He hugged that hot pot long enough to leave a permanent souvenir on his chest. In the end, all 4 intruders were chased out of the temple looking more battered than a losing army. Refusing to admit defeat, the crew took a moment to lick their wounds before returning to the temple for round 2. This time, they brought out the big gun's explosive charges and blew a hole right through the wall to force their way in. Realizing they were outgunned, the little Arhats retreated deep into the forest. Outside, the temple was left in ruins. From the wreckage, Saul crawled out and called for his brothers, but no one answered. His crying eventually led Dragon right to him, and the thug took him captive. Meanwhile, the other brothers realized Saul was missing and immediately mobilized a rescue mission. That night, Saul spotted a smoke signal in the sky and knew his brothers were nearby, just as the old abbot had taught them, in times of danger, use smoke to find each other. The next morning, Saul pretended to lead Dragon's crew to the treasure, but he was actually walking them straight into an ambush. The second they reached a spot, Saul tripped a hidden trigger, sending a massive log swinging down that sent Dragon flying. Furious at the betrayal, Dragon went charging after Saul. Elsewhere in the woods, Gadget was trying to be extra careful to avoid traps, but he still ended up getting snatched up in a net and hauled into the trees. He was then tied up and camouflaged with leaves until he looked like a giant box. The other kids were hiding in the brush, using blowguns to pepper Brute's backside with leaves. Right then, Little C tripped over a tripwire, sending a heavy log tumbling down. In a rare moment of bravery, Brute lunged in to shield the kid and ended up getting pinned under the log. Silky didn't fare much better, ending up absolutely battered by the forest traps. It was a total disaster for the thieves, and Dragon was finally ready to throw in the towel. But as he leaned against a tree to surrender, he slipped and fell right into a hidden pit. He landed in a small pond at the bottom, and as he climbed out, the gemstone in his hand started to glow, revealing the entrance to the ancient tomb of Sheng Yu. The little Arhats followed him inside, their curiosity getting the better of them. Dragon placed a gem into the slot on a dragon statue, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. But the moment the kids stepped in, he was nowhere to be found. They looked around and found a massive stash of candy which, to them, was the real treasure. While the boys were busy celebrating their sweet find, Dragon had actually fallen into a pitch-black corner of the tomb. Above them, the kids were startled when a terrifying armored general emerged from the shadows. They tried to fight back with their weapons, but it was no use. The figure was practically invincible. It turns out that general was actually Dragon, who had found a legendary suit of ancient armor. The little Arhats combined their strength to strike at his midsection, but the armor's power sent the impact right back at them, knocking the whole group into the river. Suddenly, they spotted the old abbot sitting calmly by the cave entrance, playing a melody. Dragon recognized him as the man who had saved him earlier. But when he was told he had to leave the armor behind, he turned on his savior and attacked. The old abbot wasn't bothered at all with just a few swift strikes of his staff. He shattered the glowing gem on the chest of the armor. Dragon lost his mind and bolted toward the river to take it out on the little Arhats. But the boys were ready, locking into their Arhat Formation to face him. The old abbot watched from above, playing a rhythmic tune that seemed to control the flow of the fight. With every new beat, Dragon found himself forced into hilarious poses, from handstands to full-on hip-hop moves. Eventually, he collapsed in a heap, and the kids looked to their master to see if they should finish the job. The old abbot told them that it's never too late to turn over a new leaf. He explained that even the most misguided person can find their way back to a good heart if they truly decide to change. Hearing this, the little Arhats released Dragon. The whole group, teacher and students, came together for a heartfelt hug. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.